Looking for the ultimate beauty secret? A simple switch from cotton pillowcases to Blissy's pure silk pillowcase can transform any skincare and hair care routine. This isn't just any silk pillowcase. Blissy uses the highest grade mulberry silk, earning it the title of Best Gift of 2024. Unlike synthetic satin pillowcases that damage hair and skin, Blissy's dermatologist-tested silk is clinically proven to prevent clogged pores while maintaining natural moisture balance. The benefits are remarkable. Smoother, healthier hair, preserved styling, and no more morning sleep wrinkles. The naturally cooling silk provides perfect temperature regulation for peaceful sleep, while its antibacterial properties maintain a clean sleep environment. Over 3 million Blissy pillowcases have been sold, and they've been featured everywhere from Live with Kelly and Mark to Oprah Daily. With over 70 stunning colors, including the new Wicked and Harry Potter collections, there's a perfect Blissy for everyone. Because you're a listener, Blissy is offering 60 nights risk-free, plus an additional 30% off when you shop at blissy.com/Wondery. That's BLISSY.com/Wondery. And use code Wondery to get an additional 30% off. Your skin and hair will thank you.
Is your AI built to work with your business's data? IBM helps you integrate and govern unstructured data wherever it lives, so your business can have more accurate AI instead of just more of it. Get your data ready for AI at IBM.com. The AI built for business. IBM.
The amazing Kate Casey.
Welcome back for another episode of Reality Life with Kate Casey. And if you have watched Unknown Number, the High School Catfish on Netflix, you're going to want to tune in because this is part 2 of my deep dive into that documentary. If you have yet to watch and you don't want any spoilers, I would suggest pausing this and then watching it and coming back. Now, you guys know Unknown Number, the High School Catfish, unravels the shocking true story of Kendra Licari, a Michigan mother and basketball coach. She orchestrated an elaborate cyberstalking campaign that targeted her own daughter and her daughter's boyfriend. Using anonymous numbers and digital tools to disguise her identity, she sent thousands of harassing and threatening messages over the course of a year, all while outwardly appearing to help teens track down the so-called perpetrator. This Netflix documentary exposes not only the twisted deception at the heart of the case, but also the painstaking forensic work required to uncover the truth and the emotional toll on the victims and their community. In yesterday's episode number 1395, I walked you through the details of the case and then sat down with Michael Greer, retired Deputy Homeland Security Chief. He's a highly respected technology expert. He also served as a special agent with the Department of Justice and the FBI and brought incredible insight into the world of cybersecurity and terrorism. So we broke down the intricacies of the forensic investigation, how Kendra was able to evade discovery for so long, and the high-stakes challenges investigators face when chasing digital footprints. Well, today, we continue this important conversation, and this time with the attorney, David Barberi. He is featured in the documentary. He provides a critical legal perspective on the case, offering analysis of how the justice system approached it, the broader implications for cyberstalking laws, and the very real consequences that victims face when perpetrators weaponize technology. This is an essential follow-up that not only expands our understanding of this case, but it also underscores the need for continued awareness around digital crimes and accountability. I thought this was a fascinating documentary. I know a lot of you joined me. So make sure that you share this with the people that you have been stuck with in maybe a grocery line or on a text exchange or in the carpool or at the gym who have been talking about this as well, because I think it's going to give you broader context for the story. So here's my interview with David. David, I think you might be the most popular person in the country right now. I am so thrilled to talk to you. Have you been feeling in the last few days like your computer is going to blow up, your phone? Everybody in town is clamoring to talk to you. Has this been a whirlwind already?
You know, it's amazing how much notoriety this case and this documentary has gotten over time. Mm-hmm. We shot this thing over a year ago, and when it finally got released, I mean, to be honest with you, I didn't even have a heads up on it. And all of a sudden this thing came out and, it comes out over a holiday weekend. And within, hours of it being released, phones blowing up, emails, text messages, people I haven't seen or talked to in years. I mean, it's just kind of crazy. There you are in the middle of it.
So first, I guess my question is, how did this case first come to you?
So, it's kind of funny. When this thing started, it basically was a discussion at a school safety meeting. And there was some kind of dialogue between myself. To the best of my recollection, it was myself, the superintendent, and the sheriff. And they kind of pulled me aside after the meeting. This is a meeting where we talked to all the local superintendents, all the public schools in the community, and really kind of address issues as far as school safety, security, with the height of all the school violence and things like that going on. And he pulls me aside and says, "Hey, we may have some issue we got to deal with. I don't know if your office is going to have to get involved or not, but we're having some issue with some bullying and cyberbullying going on out at Beale City." And in all honesty, it was kind of presented like it was just a bunch of juveniles. And so from my perspective, it didn't seem like something that was going to, metastasize, if you will, into this massive ordeal.
How well did you know the people involved, or just did it feel immediately like far removed? Because does seem to be a small area.
Yeah, in the beginning, I didn't know any of the people involved. When it was first presented to me, there were no real names. In the very beginning, there were no names given. It was just kind of, hey, there's a couple of kids that are getting picked on, constantly being harassed. It's been going on for a while, and we're trying to get to the bottom of it. And when they bring me in, it's mostly, hey, we may need some search warrants. We may need some investigative tools, so to speak, to try to get to the bottom of who may be behind this. And we agreed to it. I mean, obviously, if there's something like that going on and they've exhausted all of their other options, and certainly a search warrant is a useful tool in an investigation. But in the beginning, we didn't know who was involved at all. I didn't personally, anyways.
Mm-hmm. So when you became privy to some of those texts, was it jaw-dropping for you? Because I think as the viewer, they seem to start off, relatively simple. And as time stretches on, I mean, even adults are wincing.
Yeah. It's interesting when we first were requested to look at some of this stuff, we had a very limited amount of those texts. I mean, maybe max, maybe 100 of them, maybe even less than that. And they were bad, but not all of them. There was a lot of name calling. And then you get this dossier at the end of the case, after the search warrants uncovered all of these text messages and files. I mean, you couldn't fathom not only the content, but just the volume of text messages that were being sent back and forth. I mean, and over such a lengthy period of time.
So does Owen receive the same exact text?
Sometimes they would get the same messages. Sometimes they would get separate messages. I would say she took the brunt of the messages by far, but he was continually getting some of that throughout the year. I guess our first involvement was reviewing that first search warrant. And at that point, I mean, we've already, once you're doing a search warrant for her information, I mean, we're already kind of cued in on that. What ended up happening is she kind of voluntarily provided some of the information to us. I mean, turning over the kids' phones, and the McKennays gave up their information or their digital devices to have them look through. And that's where we started to get these IP addresses back and forth that really kind of showed some kind of a trail onto who might be involved in this thing. But we had a pretty good idea. By the time our office got involved, we had a pretty good idea it was her. But it was very slow going in the sense that, they ruled out a lot of different people. that process was slow. But then once it got to us, we'd pretty well zeroed in on her, and we'd kind of identified her as a primary suspect at that point.
What stood out for you from the very beginning about her personality? She seems to be so unusual. I mean, clearly. But even when you watch the documentary and you see the footage in her own home, it seems like she's disconnected. Was there something that stood out for you about her personality?
I mean, I think the craziest part about this, right, is that, even when she's confronted with it, from a prosecution standpoint, normally people come in, they fall on the sword, they go through and they figure out when she's got to that point, right, when she's kind of, in essence, come clean and made a quasi confession. Normally, from there, it's about mitigation. What are you going to do to try to improve? And she just really seemed cold and callous throughout the whole process. I wouldn't say that she was totally apathetic, but she didn't really have a lot of emotion. I mean, it wasn't, she didn't seem to be affected by anything that was going on. It was like she just thought she should continue to be living her life, having a relationship with her daughter and her family. And it was almost like we were just interfering with, status quo. And even at the end, it was, there wasn't any major psychological finding or any kind of, intense counseling that she went through. It was like she just was going through the motions.
It almost sounds like a sociopath. Like she doesn't seem to have any empathy for anybody involved.
Yeah. I mean, particularly, it seemed like she was just going to be kind of moving forward with this relationship with her daughter. And, and I'm sure that they've gone through some counseling, but, it didn't seem like that was something that she had a massive interest in early on. So just kind of interesting that way.
Church's Smokehouse Chicken is back, and the block already knows what's up. The new Smokehouse Rub hits every piece of that juicy half chicken with bold, smoky flavor that goes straight to the bone. Nobody else does it like Church's. Our recipe served up just for you. Get it in original or bring the heat with the spicy rub. Dial it up Texas style with a honey butter biscuit and a spicy jalapeno pepper on the side. The new dry rub has everybody talking. Lose yourself in the flavor of Smokehouse Chicken, starting at $5.99. Order online or in store, only at Church's. Price and participation may vary, tax extra, U.S. only.
Parents, welcome back to one of the busiest times of the year, back to school, but you can make it a whole lot easier with Uber Eats. Right now, you can get up to 40% off back-to-school essentials. Everything from notebooks, colored pencils, calculators, and glue sticks to lunchbox favorites like string cheese, juice boxes, fresh fruit, and Lunchables. No need to juggle one more errand. Just open the Uber Eats app and get everything you need delivered fast. That's school supply shopping simplified. Offer ends September 16th. Terms apply. See app for details. Order now on Uber Eats.
Now, you've worked on a number of cases. The disconnect, and I know that she mentions in the process of interviewing that she had previous trauma, but she's not specific about what that was. Did it seem like this was a trauma response or this was somebody who was sincerely a sociopath?
Trauma manifests in a lot of different ways. I think from my experience, this didn't seem like an ordinary response. It didn't make sense. It didn't make sense on paper. It wasn't, very clearly documented. I personally, no, I didn't really buy that as a valid reason for what happened. It seemed far more like there was something else as a motivating factor, whether it was, this kind of Munchausen by proxy that had been discussed, whether it was causing harm and with intent to kind of draw her daughter closer. I think there was some of that for sure. I don't think that it was a trauma-based thing, but I don't want to, downplay the effects of trauma on people. But I don't think this is a normal manifestation of how trauma or people respond to trauma, especially later in life. But, from my perspective, it seemed a lot more like she was trying to, create harm to her daughter emotionally, so that she could be there as the source for comfort. And that's kind of how we analyze it. I mean, we didn't ever get any kind of an evaluation from our office anyways, that suggested any of that was supported. It just seemed like that was kind of the motivating factor. There was a lot of people that had questions about Owen, and was she infatuated with Owen? And, other than a theory, we didn't have anything to support that either.
But she did seem obsessed with going to his games, even well after they had broken up.
Yeah. I mean, and that's, it's a small community. A lot of the parents are involved in things like that. It was very
bored. She has nothing to do because she's pretending to work.
Yeah. That was bizarre. It just kind of goes to the whole deception that she kind of was a part of. I mean, she pretended to be going to work, obviously wasn't doing that. It was very bizarre behavior. I mean, the whole thing.
Mm-hmm. A big question I had when I watched the footage when the officers come to her house, it looks like there is a table covered in alcohol bottles. What was that?
Yeah, I don't know. To be honest with you, we never really delved into that. I assume that she was probably hosting some sort of an event out at their house on the lake there. But it was kind of bizarre. I've seen a lot of people comment on that, and we never followed up on that. It wasn't really a question that we were too concerned about in light of everything else going on.
So, do we know of any pre-existing addiction issues at all?
None came up in our case, and people obviously would. I think people would, if that was the root of this, right? If substance abuse was anywhere even remotely close, I think people would run to that. Defense attorneys would try to find some, hey, here's a clear motive. She's got this kind of an issue, and that never came up.
So, did you find that there were other people that had rung an alarm? Like other people from the beginning may have thought she could have been involved in some capacity? Or was it truly like everyone was just shocked?
Well, when you watch this show, I think there's some people that seem to suggest that they were that they had an idea it might be her early on. And I think, with the benefit of hindsight, it's, everybody can now say, oh, there were signs, or, we suggested this. But I think people were throwing out a lot of names, of potential suspects. And I just think that when you look at it, nobody really thought in a million years it was going to be her mother. So, when somebody may suggest, well, it could be her. Yeah, it could be. And, ultimately it did. It did end up being her. But in the moment, I don't think anybody, the investigators or anybody else, were really looking at the parents here as suspects. And I think that's what's so crazy about it. I mean, that's what makes this case so insane, is that, the length both that she went to try to conceal herself, but also just the idea that, she kind of had a built-in cover because no one would have thought it was a parent.
Mm-hmm. And she had so much time, like as we noted, because she had been pretending to work. How long was she able to convince people that she was still working? What was the period of time between getting fired and being arrested?
I don't remember that. It's been a while and I've been a little bit removed from it.
Yeah.
But I would guess it was a couple of months, I want to say. I think it was a decent amount of time. And, I know that it was a very big concern to her husband that was going on, because I think that was causing some strain financially.
Well, for sure. What were some of the challenges that you faced in preparing for the case?
I think the case had a lot of unique challenges. I mean, first and foremost, you've got a relationship with a mother and daughter. Daughter wants to continue to have a relationship with mother. In the beginning, father wanted to foster that at the same time, and it was, we felt for sure that we were getting, almost zero cooperation from them on that side of things. We were trying to kind of separate mom just to give daughter a little breathing room. And then, that didn't really, we never really felt like we got that. I mean, the court forced it through a protective order, but in the beginning, dad wasn't really interested in helping us participate. I mean, we would reach out, we'd get no communication back, things like that. So we wanted to get their input on what they wanted to see, how she was doing. We never really got that. And then on the other side of it, you've got this other side of the case where, the McKinney family was obviously very upset, very, rightfully very upset. And they wanted to see her held, responsible and have consequence. And so you had to kind of the interplay of the dichotomy of the two families and what they wanted to see happen. Ultimately, I think that the judge did a really good job kind of reaching a middle ground, if you will. She got sent to prison. That's, with someone that has, no criminal history, that's a pretty significant jump. So she got sent to prison. She got 19 months, and it was the high end of the guidelines, or towards the high end of the guidelines. I think she capped out at like 23 months. So it was a very, good sentence that way, but also it was a recognition that, hey, at some point you're going to have to get out and probably continue to be in your daughter's life. And I thought the judge did a good job that way. So from the difficulties, I think the most challenging things that we had once we'd issued the case was just trying to craft a resolution that really satisfied both the public's interest, and I say the public, I mean, the people of the state of Michigan, as well as the victim's interest.
And it's challenging too, because this is a small town and these two kids still have to go to school together. And
oh yeah.
I'm assuming the parents live down the street from each other. How does that factor into the complication of this case too?
Yeah, I mean, it's, these kids are all in school together, and a lot of the people that are named as witnesses in our case are, they're in high school together. They're still trying to live lives, and with all of this kind of going on in the background. And at one point, Lauryn did move away, and she kind of left the area, which I think was good. I think her dad recognized that they needed to be a little bit further removed from the situation. And that was positive, I think. But she ultimately did come back to the area.
I think a lot of people wonder too, why didn't the parents just get rid of the phones?
Yeah, I want to say it's in the report, but they found the phone hidden in a wood pile. When she saw the police show up, she kind of took off and hid the phone in the woods. And I think when it's kind of like, why would she participate in this program? In all honesty, I don't know what she thought positively was going to come out of participating in this documentary. So it's kind of, I think it just goes to show you how
she likes attention.
Yeah. And how much she was attached to that process. I mean, that harassment, I guess, if you will, is just the negative interaction, how she fed off of this.
Mm-hmm. Well, I can understand why she's not taking her daughter's phone, because she wants her to participate in this. However, Owen's parents, I think a lot of people wondered, why didn't they just take his phone away? Why didn't they change his number? Why
so they did
subject him to that?
They did. They did do that. And then he would give out a new number, and he would have.
And it would happen again.
Yeah.
Wow.
They did do that. I mean, that was, I think you look back on it, I think the McKenna's really kind of got, drug into this thing. And it was, I don't think they obviously wanted any real part in this process when it started, right? Obviously they didn't want Owen to get harassed. They didn't want him to have to go through all these issues with the police. And then once it came to light how it was happening and who it was, I think that at that point, and rightfully so, it really just transitioned to, no, we have to do this. We have to make sure she's held accountable. We need to tell our side of the story because they were frustrated, obviously, and angry at Kendra and the whole process, I think. They understandably, and like everybody in these things, and I say these things, and everybody in a criminal case, they want things to move quickly. And I know they were frustrated, with how quickly it moved, both in an investigation stage. And then once it got to us, we had to review everything and make sure we had our ducks in a row. And, it took a while to go through everything and make sure that we'd reviewed all the evidence and that we were prepared, because we didn't know. I mean, Kendra could have come in and kind of fought this thing tooth and nail and made us jump through all the hoops. But she was, to her credit, did not make anybody testify against her in this case. And that was a huge benefit to her. The judge cited that as a benefit for why he shaved some time off of her sentence and things like that. And it would have been and that was the consideration that we had, right? It's, there were people that said, well, why did she get a plea deal at all? And that's kind of the interesting thing. Like, people don't know the ins and outs of the local law or Michigan law. And if she was convicted on everything she was charged with, it wouldn't have had a huge bearing on her overall sentence. Her guideline grids would have been almost identical. And so from my office's perspective, what our thought process was, what my thought process was that I didn't want to traumatize these kids and have to go through a trial, have them live through that. And, with the notoriety this thing was already getting at that time. I mean, it had garnered, Good Morning America and a lot of major media outlets. We knew that a trial would be a zoo, and, no one involved in the case really wanted that to happen. We thought that this sentence or this outcome was very appropriate. And we were just kind of hopeful that the judge would sentence towards the maximum end of the guidelines, which he did. So those were all the things that we'd considered when the case was going on and kind of what we wanted to see happen. And I think it was a very good outcome that way.
If your dog could talk, they'd beg for Ollie. The full-body tail wag, the excited little hops, the big goofy grin, that's the Ollie effect. Ollie delivers clean, fresh nutrition in 5 drool-worthy flavors, even for the pickiest eaters. Made in U.S. kitchens with highest quality human-grade ingredients, Ollie's food contains no fillers, no preservatives, just real food. With 5 protein-packed recipes like fresh beef with sweet potatoes or fresh turkey with blueberries, even the pickiest eaters can't resist. You might think, dang, my dog eats better than I do. And that's probably true when it comes to Ollie. Dogs deserve the best, and that means fresh, healthy food. Head to ollie.com/Wondery. Tell them all about your dog and use code WONDERY to get 60% off your welcome kit when you subscribe today. Plus, they offer a happiness guarantee on the first box, so if you're not completely satisfied, you'll get your money back. That's OLLIE.com/Wondery and enter code WONDERY to get 60% off your first box.
It's your man, Nick Cannon, and I'm here to bring you my new podcast, Nick Cannon at Night. I've heard y'all been needing some advice in the love department. So who better to help than yours truly? Nah, I'm serious. Every week, I'm bringing out some of my celebrity friends and the best experts in the business to answer your most intimate relationship questions. Having problems with your man? We got you. Catching feelings for your sneaky link? Let's make sure it's the real deal first. Ready to bring toys into the bedroom? Let's talk about it. Consider this a non-judgment zone to ask your questions when it comes to sex and modern dating in relationships, friendships, situationships, and everything in between. It's gonna be sexy, freaky, messy, and you know what? You'll just have to watch the show. So don't be shy. Join the conversation and head over to YouTube to watch Nick Cannon at Night, or subscribe on the Wondery app or wherever you get your podcasts. Want to watch episodes early and ad-free? Join Wondery Plus right now.
Is she allowed to be around children? Are there any other factors now in the aftermath that would disallow her from having access to kids?
So I'm not actually aware of whether or not has any prohibition on being around minors. I'm not even sure to date if they've modified her ability to have contact with her daughter. Now that I've been out of office for almost a year, I don't have access to that information anymore. But I know at one time she was not allowed to have access with her, have contact with her daughter. Whether she was able to be in contact with other kids or not, I don't know.
How has this case really shifted your mindset, especially as a parent?
I think my mindset on cell phones to kids, I have 4 kids, and my kids are starting to get into that age where they want phones. They use the internet, they use devices, but it's really, I think the information that we have in front of us is suggesting that, it's better to hang on, just wait, tough it out. I know it's convenient, and then when your kids are in sports and activities, but not only is it to open them up to, teenage issues, right? Bullying amongst juveniles and kids, and don't even get me started on the pressures from social media, but it really allows them to have this unfiltered access to the entire world. And, in this case, it wasn't the entire world. It was somebody down the street, but because of that access to the entire world, it really makes it hard to figure out who's actually on the other end of that device. And, you can have your kid having a communication or contact with somebody that says they're, the same age, and maybe it says they live just down the road, but they could be on the other side of the world. And, you never know where a predator may be. And it's just, I think from my perspective, you really need to monitor your kids when they're on these things, and try to put some safeguards in place to make sure that nothing like this would happen to your kids. I mean, I will be honest, it's the other side of it is all the safety measures in the world, right? And this is her own mother. So it's not like, you can do it as much as you want as a parent, but if the parent's the perpetrator, it makes it pretty tough.
Was there anything that was not included in the documentary that you would want people to know?
That's a good question. I think one thing, there was a lot of interview, right? I have to imagine everybody sat down for a similar amount of time as we did. And so it's interesting to see what they distilled down and put out. I thought it was well done, but there was a lot of backstory, and I think I certainly think it came across well, but I don't know if people understood how much stress this put on these families. And when you think about it, it's when something happens to you as an adult, you're able to adapt and to manage. But when something happens to your kid and you have no control over it and you can't figure out why it's happening and you can't stop it, that's a whole different animal. And I think that people probably didn't get the whole grasp of how much this was affecting the McKinney family. Both while it was going on and once we'd issued and just everything that they had to deal with the court case.
Well, I also think of like this small little town, and now they're on the world map. And it's probably pretty painful to to experience this all over again. It's like reopening the wound. Have you had families that have kind of talked in the community about the fact that this has put this story back into people's, it's back in people's minds?
No, and I feel badly. I probably will reach out to the McKennies when I'm done with this, because I haven't talked to them since the film came out. I've had some discussions with other people that were involved in the process, and I think you have to imagine it. I'm almost positive the kids are all graduated. Maybe not all of them, but the two that were in the film, they're the two main victims in the film. And I'm glad. I don't know if it was by design or happenstance that this didn't come out while they were in school, because I can't imagine having to deal with that every day at school, and just have people look at you differently. Mm. But it has. It's amazing how many people are reaching out, talking about it, both locally but afar, and I think it's just it's got to be that relationship. Parents do. In my line of work, we see parents do bad things to kids, right? But it's usually by way of an assault, something like that, and it's not usually something where they're, involved for this period of time, and really just constantly bullying somebody, constantly harassing somebody. And I think that's what makes this case so crazy. That, and, Kendra being involved in trying to, figure out who this person was, and going to the police and trying to say, oh man, oh my gosh, we got to figure out who's doing this, and going to the police and trying to participate. And it was just, you say, sociopath, and it really, you have to wonder, what's there. So.
Well, especially because we're all just trying to protect our kids. We turn on the news and there are a myriad of things that we have to worry about. And the idea that someone's own parent would want to do this, if anything, it's, I think, a cautionary tale of paying special attention to the people in our orbit. So we can't always control what happens in the lives of other families, but we can certainly try to pay attention and open conversations where something like this could never happen again.
Yeah. And I think that's, you kind of hit the nail on the head. It's like when this thing was going on, Kendra's out there trying to help, the McKinney family figure out who is doing this. And she can't believe this is happening to these kids. And, I think that's why they were so hurt. I mean, aside from the content of the messages, it was, here's somebody who is being portrayed to be our friend and who's, offering to try to help us. And they were the person that committed the crime. It's the person that's closest to you, or, maybe not the closest, but someone that is close to you, turning out to be the villain. I mean, it just adds to the sensationalism of the story.
And we don't want to take away the purity of a child, that they, can believe in people. But I think this is a case where it just reminds us that we always need to be on guard.
Yeah. And Beale City being such a small, tight-knit community, right? I mean, parents know each other. Parents help raise each other's kids. They pick each other up from sport events, take them home, things like that. And I think that's really what, it's that relationship, that trust was just shattered, when they came to find out what was actually happening.
So you have now gone back into private practice. What are you working on now? What kinds of cases?
So now I do criminal defense and personal injury. I've kind of jumped right back into criminal defense as kind of a natural segue from prosecution. But our firm also handles personal injury cases, and we've been doing that for quite a while.
So how can people reach out to you?
I can be reached at our website, barberilawfirm.com, or via social media, both on Facebook and Instagram. It's probably the best way to get a hold of me.
I'm so grateful for your time. And thank you so much for explaining this and giving us broader context, because I certainly think this is going to be the kind of story that we're talking about for quite some time.
Yeah, it's something that maybe we need to really consider whether we have tougher legislation for something like this. Cyberbullying is not going away. And we've seen a lot of states that have moved towards tightening up on cyberbullying laws. I don't think anybody ever envisioned something quite like this, though. It's hard to legislate the rare occasions, but I think a lot of people were very surprised by how little of time she got. But in kind of the modern criminal justice system, I was very pleased with the outcome.
Again, thank you for your time.
Not a problem.
The amazing Kate Casey.
I want to thank my fantastic guest and remind you to make sure that you subscribe to this podcast to get all new episodes. You can also join my Facebook group, Reality Life with KKC. You can also get my what to watch list of what to watch each week in unscripted TV by going to katecasey.substack.com. I also have bonus episodes. I hope that you join me for those. They can be found on Apple Podcast and on Patreon at patreon.com/KKC. And make sure that you follow me on social media. I'm on Instagram at @KKCCA, TikTok, it's Kate Casey, and Twitter, Threads, and Blue Sky at @KKC. You want to check back tomorrow. My Saturday episode is with Ace Fanning because I went ahead and did the favor to all of you by reading the Christine Brown Woolley book, and we go through all of it. So check back tomorrow.
How hard is it to kill a planet? Maybe all it takes is a little drilling, some mining, and a whole lot of carbon pumped into the atmosphere. When you see what's left, it starts to look like a crime scene.
Are we really safe? Is our water safe? You destroyed our town.
And crimes like that, they don't just happen.
We call things accidents. There is no accident. This was 100% preventable.
They're the result of choices by people. Ruthless oil tycoons, corrupt politicians, even organized crime. These are the stories we need to be telling about our changing planet. Stories of scams, murders, and cover-ups that are about us and the things we're doing to either protect the Earth or destroy it. Follow Lawless Planet on the Wondery app or wherever you get your podcasts. You can listen to new episodes of Lawless Planet early and ad-free right now by joining Wondery Plus in the Wondery app, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify.